Designing this awesome Scratch program. And also want to say thanks to Dante for encouraging me to get outside of my box and try a video rather than a written journal. So today I'm going to talk about the process that I went through when trying to create my Scratch project. So as you guys can see here, I'm going to zoom out so you can see, I started with trying to create my own backdrop. And this was a terrible idea. First off, the art platform on this Scratch program is not that great. So I got into some trouble when I was adding details to my tree. So I started off with a simple figure and then started adding more details, like you can see right here where I tried to add this branch on. And I ended up with this problem where it doesn't see the whole combined object as the same, even though they've been grouped together. So now if I select the tree, you see how the whole thing's been selected because I was able to group it together. But it doesn't actually attach these things. So when I go to fill the tree, you'll see this really cool thing happen. Let's just pick a color. Yeah, what happened here? So part of the tree filled in appropriately, and other parts of the tree, I don't know what happened here. So I got kind of stuck on this for a couple of hours trying to figure out how to fix this problem until I realized I was doing this all the wrong way. So let me go to my other project that I made. Leave that behind. Okay, so we'll go inside of my Falling Leaves project. So I started out with the concept of wanting to create this season's changing. I'll go and give you a view of what it looks like. So you can see I've got my leaves falling. My leaves are changing color on the tree. So that's where I started with, and then I also created an effect where you can change the daytime to nighttime. And then I added in the interactive component of having the fox that's trying to chase the rabbit. So I'll kind of go step by step through how I went through this process. So one of the first things that I did was I tried to encode my trees. Actually, I put my leaves first, but I encoded my trees. So the trees I end up using the trees that they have in the sprites list. And I then separated out, so I'm not sure how well you guys are going to be able to see this. I separated out the trunks from the treetops because I wanted to change colors on these. So I'll go and look at one of the ones I changed colors with. And so what I did, and I did this two different ways between the leaves and the trees. So what I did was I went to my trees and I made costumes for them. So you can just right click and duplicate a tree. I'll duplicate another one. I don't need it, so I'm going to go delete it again. So I duplicated it out. So now you see I have 5 different versions, and then I just went and I changed my fill on them. So I did the same thing where you hold shift while you select, and it allows you to select multiple things. So then I just went to my fill and adjusted my colors. So I could adjust the color slightly, adjust the tint, and I'll go ahead and hit Command Z so I don't change that. So then I just adjusted them for each version of the season so that you can see on the right where my tree's changing color as I go through the costumes. So that's the way that I addressed the color change on that. Now on the sprites I did something different. For the leaf sprites, I did something different. You can see that I've only got one costume here. So instead of creating multiple costumes, which was a little bit of a challenge, I went through and found that I can change the color change and brightness. So for depending on the color that it was, actually we can't see because it's hidden behind here. Now let's do one of these other leaves. It's not. There we go. We'll go with that leaf. So if I'm looking at the color change, when I click it, it resets. Of course, it's going to reset. Sprite wants to hide behind there. So you can see the color changed once and the brightness changed a little, because depending on the color, you have to change the brightness to get it to look right. So I was able to set this change effect to happen over time, combined with the glide, so that it would glide for 2.5 or 2.8 seconds on this particular one. So I had them set for different times so that they didn't fall completely unison and look a little more natural this way. And the color changes and the brightness changes after each glide, so that it's kind of matching up with the timing of the trees changing. Although it's not a perfect match, it's close enough to where they appear to be following like the same seasonal change. So then I went with my darkness change, and I wanted to make it to where that you could change the difficulty of playing the game by making it darker, to where you're hunting the rabbit at night. So in order to do this one was a bit more challenging because they don't have universal scripts that apply to everything. So if you want to do that, what I did was I went to my backpack. So I created this script for when arrow down is pressed, if bright equals 0. So this is let me see which, I'll put it, there we go. So I had to set a variable for brightness, right? So in the backdrop, I put that to set the variable, so that when you start the program, it sets the brightness to 0. That's the neutral brightness, which is daytime. So I didn't want it to be able to go above full brightness, full daytime, right? And then I don't want it to go, to absolute pitch black. So I needed to set limitations on this. So what I did was I had it to where every time you hit down, as you can see right here, change the brightness by -1. So then I was able to set the if the brightness was greater than -3, then you're allowed to make it darker, right, by reducing the brightness by 25. And then on the reverse end, I have it when the up arrow is pressed, if the brightness is less than 0, then you're able to brighten it. But if it's equal to 0, which is full brightness, I don't want it to go any brighter. So it has to be less than 0 in order to brighten the screen by 25. So then I had to go and take this script that I created and add this to everything, minus the changing the bright. So you don't want to duplicate any of the variable changes. You don't want to duplicate it across, otherwise you have multiple ones changing the variables at once. So then let's say I have it spread across 3 things and I hit the down arrow once. Now each one will -1 and it'll change the variable to -3 when I really only want it to be -1. So I found that out the hard way. So I had to go and remove that. But so that you can see that I have this same thing pasted into every sprite. So the easier way to do this, which I did not discover it this way because I decided to do the change, I added this brightness change after I'd created everything. It would have been easier if I'd created one leaf, made everything the way I want it to be, and then create a duplicate of that, right? So if I went and duplicated that, then it would have all the same properties, and then I could just change its positioning, which I would need to change where it's going to glide to, that positioning. That would have been definitely the easier way of doing this rather than having to duplicate it across every one. The hair was another challenging one that I had. So this is one of the faults, I guess, of Scratch, is that it only lets you shrink down so much. So I was having these iterations of the hair running through the screen, right? So at first I had him set to a particular XY. And then I realized that that would be boring if someone played the game twice. So I needed to create a random, but I wanted to set the X location. I wanted him to run from left to right, but I wanted the Y to be random, and it didn't have something for a random Y that I saw. So what I did was I just set the whole position to random, and then I set the X to where I wanted it to be, and before showing the hair. So I had him hidden while I'm positioning him, so that you don't see him like warping across the screen. And then I had to set another variable of eaten, whether or not he was eaten, to continue running the script, if he's eaten, to stop the script by changing the variable eaten, which I set that one in our Fox. So let's see. Yes. So if he's touching the hair, then we set the eaten to 1. And I also need to set the sound, an off for the sound, so that the fox eating the hair would create the gulp sound that I wanted. And then I also set him to say yummy. So there was a lot of figuring things out as I went along, and they give you the backpack, which is sort of a way of creating scripts. But one of the downsides of this chunky version of doing this is that when you have like a long script, like I did with the hair, so I'm going to show you guys that, because this is definitely something that I think people would want to know ahead of time. So if you have a very long script that you're running where I've got iterations, I'm going to show you, I've got one iteration of it written on the right hand side. So this code here on the right isn't actually being used, but this is a version of every time the hair runs across the screen. So I'll show you how long this thing runs. I'm still going. So you see how long, actually this might be a couple versions of this. Maybe it's when I adjusted one of the settings. Oh yeah, sorry, this is the one where I went eaten. So this is actually several iterations before I added the eaten variable. So when I made this adjustment to fix the bug that I had, I was scrolling through a long time, having to grab a long chunk, move it up. You're only allowed to move it up so far. Well, you know what? I didn't have a mouse. I was actually using my laptop and using the touchpad. So maybe if I had a mouse, it would allow me to grab and scroll at the same time. But with this one, I wasn't able to hold it and scroll. So I had to move it up one screen at a time, scroll up, move it up, in order to paste in chunks of this iteration, instead of having something where I could say to do it repeat 4 times. At least I didn't find anything that allowed me to repeat something multiple times. Oh shoot, there it is right there, repeat. Never mind. So yeah, I didn't even find that. So I would have loved to have figured that out when I was doing it, instead of having to go and copy and paste that in. So yeah, there's a lot of things where you're kind of like figuring it out the hard way, which is good. I already kind of have worked with Python and some other programming languages before, so this was a little bit more challenging because I'm trying to think of it in like simpler terms and how to piece this together by blocks, but it was still quite a fun process.